Compared to the common portrayal of empresses living happily in palaces, the story of Empress Wanrong carries a different tone. Born in Beijing in 1906, she grew up during the golden age of the Chinese Empire, which had lasted for almost 2 millennia. As a member of the imperial family, she was expected to lead a glamorous and noble life. However, Wanrong's life was not as beautiful as many imagined. Her marriage to the last emperor of China, Puyi, brought more suffering than happiness. Their marriage, although celebrated magnificently, did not mark a happy beginning. Wanrong's life story reached its tragic climax when she died alone at the age of 39, trapped in a prison camp run by Chinese communist guerrillas. Wanrong was part of the imperial family during the golden age of the Chinese Empire, which had lasted for almost 2 millennia. Her father, Rongyuan, held a significant position in the social structure as part of the Plain White Banner, one of the 8 banners of the Qing society, and also served as the Minister of the Interior in the Imperial Palace of China. However, in 1911, China was in a state of tension with widespread dissatisfaction with the weakened Qing dynasty. A wave of revolution swept across the country, triggered by dissatisfaction with the authoritarian government, corruption, and the nation's decline. Demonstrations and rebellions broke out in various cities, with revolutionary groups like the Tongmenghui and the Revolutionary Alliance leading the resistance against the Qing dynasty. This situation was marked by mass protests, strikes, and armed uprisings. As the Qing government began to lose support from the military and political elites, the Xinhai Revolution reached its peak. Ultimately, on February 12, 1912, the last emperor of the Qing dynasty abdicated, marking the end of over 2,000 years of monarchical rule in China. The Republic of China was proclaimed, marking the beginning of a new era in Chinese history. However, the struggle for political stability and strong national development had just begun, with China facing significant challenges such as regional division, foreign intervention, and internal instability. Amidst the political turmoil, the young Emperor Puyi was still allowed to retain his title. He was even allowed to have a marriage ceremony in the Forbidden City after selecting a bride from a number of provided photos. Initially, Puyi chose a girl named Wen Shou, who was only 12 years old. However, reluctantly, Puyi eventually chose Wanrong as his wife, with Wen Shou becoming his concubine. Wanrong was then only 16 years old, and the teenage girl disagreed with the arranged marriage. Wanrong rebelled and refused to marry someone she had never known before. Despite her doubts, on December 1, 1922, Wanrong and Puyi officially married. Their marriage was celebrated by parading around Beijing in decorated sedan chairs, while thousands watched. Wanrong had to undergo a series of traditional ceremonies, including stepping over fire, a saddle, and holding an apple according to Manchu customs. However, from the beginning, something was amiss. The newlyweds were supposed to unite on their wedding night. But instead, Puyi chose to flee from their chamber that night. Despite the seemingly auspicious start to their marriage, Empress Wanrong continued to live her life separately. She adopted a modern lifestyle, enjoying English cuisine, and showing interest in jazz music. In fact, she changed her name to Elizabeth, taking inspiration from the Queen of England. Wanrong was also known for her kindness, such as donating 600 yuan to help disaster victims in 1923. However, behind the scenes, Empress Wanrong's life may not have been as easy as it seemed. She felt jealous of Wen Shou and began using opium as a way to cope with increasingly severe stomach and headaches. Soon, more serious problems awaited. In 1924, Wanrong's life in the Forbidden City suddenly came to an end. In October 1924, a sudden coup led by warlord Feng Yuxiang shook the peace. As a result, Puyi and Wanrong were forced to leave the Forbidden City. The royal couple, along with Wen Shou, eventually found refuge in Tianjin under Japanese protection. There, Wanrong began to experience worsening opium addiction. Despite being in exile, Wanrong tried to find happiness by attending theater performances, dancing, and excessive shopping. These things, for her, became a way to cope with the increasing competition with Wen Shou. Wanrong began to experience neurasthenia, suffering from headaches and fatigue along with increasing symptoms of depression. Puyi, her husband, never embraced love, leaving Wanrong feeling lonely, bored, and neglected. Meanwhile, Wen Shou was also unhappy with the situation and decided to leave Puyi in 1931. Puyi blamed Wanrong for Wen Shou's departure. According to Puyi, Wanrong was considered the reason Wen Shou left, so Puyi hardly spoke to her again after Wen Shou's departure. While their relationship worsened, the political fate of Wanrong and Puyi also became complicated. In 1932, Japan appointed Puyi as the leader of the puppet state of Manchukuo in Manchuria. However, their power was merely an illusion, with Wanrong being closely watched and failing in multiple attempts to escape. Although Puyi was officially crowned emperor of Manchukuo in 1934, Wanrong hated her new life and rarely appeared in public. Her mental health condition also deteriorated, and in 1938, she even began smoking 2 ounces of opium every day. Around this time, Wanrong became involved in an illicit relationship with 2 of Puyi's servants, Li Tiu and Qi Zhizhong, which eventually led to her pregnancy. This event created confusion about the fate of their daughter born in 1935. No one was really sure about the baby's fate. Some claimed that Puyi was so angry with his wife's infidelity that he threw the newborn into a steamer, while others said the baby was stillborn. However, after the baby's birth, Wanrong's mental health deteriorated drastically. Her dependence on opium quickly increased. The Empress spent her days and nights in her luxurious chamber, immersed in opium smoking activities. It was rumored that she even smoked 2 packs every day, hardly ever getting out of bed. This transformation caused Wanrong to stop dressing up, her body weakened, and she stopped attending birthdays or New Year celebrations. In fact, Wanrong almost lost her ability to walk in her vision when Manchuria was invaded by the Soviets in 1945. Meanwhile, Puyi chose to flee Manchuria, leaving his wife. Puyi and his brother-in-law were arrested by Chinese communists in January 1946 while attempting to flee to Korea. Meanwhile, Wanrong eventually fell into the hands of Chinese communist guerrillas, who then imprisoned her in a prison camp. Her final days were marked by suffering due to opium addiction, which made her roll on the floor. And no one cared about her. Not only was she ignored, but Wanrong was also mocked as an animal in the zoo by the Chinese people who belittled her as a supporter of Japan. In June 1946, Wanrong died due to malnutrition and opium overdose, amidst her own urine, at the age of 39. Ironically, the body of the last empress of the Chinese Empire was never found. In 2006, her family held a symbolic funeral ceremony to commemorate her. Empress Wanrong is now remembered as a figure who experienced tragedy. Trapped in an unhappy marriage and swept away by political storms, Wanrong led a life of loneliness and sorrow.